Joining us. A lot of people ask our history and how we started Zero Trusted AI. So, me and my co-founder actually were trying to figure out how we apply zero trust architecture to AI, and that includes the users, the components, and the models themselves, whether those be large language models, small language models, agents, their tools, and of course their protocol stacks. We found quickly that we needed to build a system from scratch because no traditional or existing cybersecurity tools really did that. And so that's really why we created Zero Trusted AI. And so, our mission's in the name. We don't inherently trust the AI. We want you to give you control of the AI. And really what that means is, we watch the AI, we test the AI, we're looking for security, privacy, reliability, and AI ethic violations, and we allow you to make risk-based decisions on what to do if that model, does something outside of that. So, what does the platform actually do? So, what is ZeroTrusted.ai's platform do? And it is a platform because it runs in real time, over time, and it connects to your protocol stacks. It acts as a gateway. It acts as an inline prompt capability, but then it does deep enumerations of the agents and models and their tools and their components. So, we built it because there's really a lack of security, privacy, and reliability controls inside of AI and AI models. They're getting better, and we're happy about that. And so we still allow you to enumerate what those configurations are and decide if they meet your security and privacy, reliability, and AI ethics requirements. So we work with the ones that they implement, but we also provide you a third party capability. Um, we also look for any type of unauthorized training or adversarial type of training with the models so that you know that either your model, and a lot of people are using them for agents, when they start responding differently or acting differently, you can figure out exactly why that happened and whether that was intentional, unintentional, or adversarial. We also have connected a lot of the compliance and regulatory requirements into the system. So, we based it on the MIT's AI risk, but also NIST Special Publication 853 Revision 5 and 600 1, which is the NIST risk management AI framework. And so we set that as our base. However, you'll see that we have a lot of the well known regulatory and compliance requirements, both at a country level, state levels, and then, of course, the well known ones like in the US, HIPAA, high tech, PCI, and then country specific ones, GDPR, LCPD, APP, a lot of the ones that, as a country, you probably need to implement. The other reason we built this platform is we realized really quickly that traditional security just doesn't work with AI. You have to put AI against AI. And also, there's very specific threats, malware, and vulnerability for AI systems. And of course, they're being used to create great and brand new threats, malware, and vulnerabilities for your traditional systems. So you're probably not going to beat them with your traditional cybersecurity and privacy tools. You're only going to beat them with an AI versus AI, right? I mean, it kind of goes back to the Terminator days where you need to enable that AI to fight on your side, and really, that's what Zero Trusted AI here is here to do. Let's talk about an overview of Zero Trusted AI, and we've been around for almost 3 years now. We're in stealth development. We have a very diverse clientele. Media, finance, construction, government, defense, technology sectors, and it's really important to know where we came out of the defense industry so we could take those very strict controls and help you implement them on your AI in your commercial industry. We're a small business, but we have over 20 employees, and those are employees that really understand how to develop, implement, and force multiply with AI. So we don't have to have 100 employees to do that. We can do it with 20. Over half of our staff is only focused on the AI/ML development for our platform, and we call that our AI judge. And we have offices in US and Latin America, and soon to be in Japan and the Middle East. Um, just as a background as a company too, and in the short period of time we've been open, we've won Product Hunt. Thank you for those who have voted for us. Product of the Day, we won SaaS of the Week. Thank you for number one place for Babel AI, Product of the Day. In a recent massive actual um, competition in Brazil, we won the Summit startup competition, and out of over 2,000 candidates that made it into the last round, we came in number one. If you're in Department of Defense or the federal government, and you want to get to us, we have an OTA, we have a CDAO, the Trade Wind Solution Marketplace. You've seen us if you have a Gartner subscription and you're looking at AI, security, privacy, reliability, and ethics tools. You've probably seen us in the AI Trism, which is the AI Trust, Risk, and Security Management Guide, and we meet all those requirements. And we've also been funded not only internally but by Microsoft and Google, specifically around AI. And so, really going back to our focus areas, we're applying zero trust to AI, and that makes sure that you get security, privacy, reliability, and ethics and AI governance in your stack. Um, and also, just that, like I said before, it's that AI versus AI capability. The slide actually needs to be updated, but really gives you an idea of kind of the cross sections of places we work with our customers. I would have told you when we started up, we would be focused really only in the high compliance areas. So Department of Defense, intelligence community, maybe finance and health. But we found out that a lot of companies are very, far in their AI journey, and they have a lot of intellectual property they're trying to protect as they use this as a force multiplier. So we've got mines, media companies, transportation, you name it. There's a bunch of companies that work with zero trusted AI and to help enable their secure AI in their organizations, to help them develop secure AI apps, and then to help them manage and maintain that AI over time. We have a lot of ways that you can use zero trusted AI, and we are a platform. So when I say platform, we're not just a lot of our competitors, they have guardrails, right? And even the AI companies, the large language model companies, have guardrails at some level. Some of them have you know um, from a depth and scope perspective, very extensive guardrails, and some of them, they're kind of there just so you don't get mad. But um, it's really important for you to understand that level. And so what we do is we provide a third-party guardrail and an AI gateway. And so, that's where we identify any sensitive documents, any data that's going to the large language models, first party or third party. Um, we have our AI judge decide whether it's going to violate any security, privacy, reliability, or AI ethics issues, and then we let you either alert or respond depending on how you set it up. But the other thing that we do, and this is really a big differentiator for us, is that we've got this offline continuous check that's AI health check. And some people call that continuous monitoring. Some people might consider it scanning, although I think that's really, a limited idea or limited scope in what we're doing there, because we're deeply enumerating the models. We're checking them over time. We're validating them against state of the art models and how they're responding from a security, privacy, reliability, and ethics perspective. It's not just kind of visibility or is the model working for you. We do a lot more deeper checks on the models to ensure they're they're in place and working as intended, as we like to say, from a security and privacy perspective. And then connecting both that real time and overtime, we are able to really give you some governance and control over those models, those agents, and those protocols. And so, yeah, if you're just using third-party models like Grok, ChatGPT, or Gemini, and you just want some third-party checks before you upload your documents, your sensitive information, we can do that, no problem. We can enumerate their configurations to see if it's against your compliance requirements. if you if you're a little further in your journey and you're using agents and you set up MCP or A2A protocols, we can help you enumerate those at the gateway level, validate them against your compliance requirements. But last but not least, we're going to constantly check those agents, those protocols, and those models to ensure that they're working as you intend them to work, not as they intend to work. So I get asked, how can I deploy this in my environment? And it's really important to understand Zero Trusted AI is set up in a way that we have lots of customers, and we have customers that are very early in their AI journey. And we also have customers that are very far down the road in their AI journey. So these are companies that are building their own models, or really have high expectations and have already built in large language models, or doing agentic architectures, and have really AI enabled their businesses. So we work with all of them, but one of the kind of real differentiators for Zero Trusted AI is that we deploy where you deploy. And right now, that's not just AWS and Azure and Google, but we allow you to do standalone on-premise deployments of our capability. We understand that some of these models are highly sensitive. They are the future of your companies. You don't want them communicating outside, and you don't want our tools communicating outside. Um, and since we came from a defense background, I mean, that's very important for our customers too, where, you don't get connection to the internet all the time. The other important part is that you just want it to be easy, right? You want to easily deploy this capability. You've got this great AR infrastructure or architecture. You've bought the GPUs, you deployed the model you want, you've enhanced it, you're fine tuning or retraining or changing the weights. Well, that's good, but now you want to really secure it. So that's where we come in, and so we deploy anywhere and everywhere. And these aren't the only places we've deployed. It's just that these are the well-known, cloud providers. Whether you have a public cloud, private cloud, government cloud, or standalone on-premise, capability, your deployment is is easy with us. And I think that's another thing that's really important to note. As long as you can work with Kubernetes, or deploy Kubernetes, we can securely run in your organization stack. So we get asked, how do you give back control of these models? So when we're talking about the guardrails, and really the AI gateway too that deals with MCP and the A2A protocols, really what we're doing there is we're taking over the prompt, you know. And so we're that middleware before you send any information to your third party models, your first party models, if you have your own internal models in your organization. We enumerate those tokens. So we break them apart. We look at the variables that go into those tokens. We look at the data that your users or agents are trying to upload. And then, we're detecting compliance violations. If you have a rule against PII or PHI or just sensitive data in your organization, we're going to redact or encrypt that based on your settings. And then we're going to optimize that prompt for context. So, if we actually redact the information, or if we anonymize it for you, that anonymization is going to be very similar, but it's not going to give out your information about your company. We'll take those sanitized tokens, we'll send them to your third party or your custom LLMs, and the output tokens, we'll take those and we'll go through and do some pre-validation on them before they get back to your users. So, we're checking for copyright and plagiarism. We're also validating, um, we're training it on the weights of the model. We're looking and comparing for accuracy and valid, whether it's valid. And so this is more hallucinations and data drift. So we'll enumerate multiple models, we'll get consensus, and then we'll find the variations. And the AI judge will actually say, hey, look, Gemini was awesome on this, but don't use ChatGPT because it's hallucinating a little bit, or it didn't quite understand the context of your question. Then we're detecting prompt injections, bias, and then giving you, some reliability, usage, and violations about that transaction, that user, and that, overall set of things that was done with the AI, the agent, or the protocol, so that you have this long, this chain of custody in your logs about what are users doing, what is your, what fine tuning's being created. And that's the other thing. I think it's really important And this slide doesn't really give it, the full view of that. But when you're in there in ChatGPT or Gemini and you're giving the thumbs up, we're keeping track of that for you. So if your mission space or your organization is, they're liking the answers and the response, we're taking that human reinforced data and giving it back to you. So then you can apply it to any model in the future. As previously stated, you probably saw that, we do compliance, regulatory, and governance, right? And that's security, privacy, reliability, and ethics. And we understand that those are both, you know, separate verticals, but many times complementary too. So we not only catch that information on how you're, alerting and regulating your AI, but over time too, if there's any type of changes in your regulatory environment or you have certain requirements for security and privacy governance or something along those lines, we've got those built into the model. So you can automatically regulate them, you can alert on them, and or if a new one comes out, we can actually build on that so that you can even look back to see how many types of issues you would have had, which is really great for training for your organization. So you can say, look, now that we have this, now we have high trust maybe, and you can go back through those logs and say you would have been 98% violation because you want to tell your users from real data like this is how we're changing, you can't send this data to our models anymore, or especially as these AI regulatory bodies are coming out all the time, we keep track of those, we implement them, and we allow you also to tune our platform to your regulatory objectives. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of stuff you can do here that are organizationally defined, right? And that means you can go down and say, well, this type of user can only get access to this type of data. I only want this type of responses. So that regulation of the AI can happen on our platform. And it's all backed by known security and privacy policies, AI ethics policies, and of course, AI ethics. Usually I'd be going and doing a demo here, but I'm going to explain a little bit more. So hopefully you've downloaded our software or you've got onto the SaaS and you're trying it. It's free. Um, but I want to give you some explanations before you go in, and you're going to find that the installation or the adding of users for your organization is super easy, super fast. We spend a lot of time on taking that resistance out of the process because we know you have a lot to work on if you're building AI programs or you're implementing AI capabilities. Or the truth is, whether you like it or not, a lot of the programs that you already have on your networks have some AI embedded in them, and you want to be able to control and regulate that. So this is a pretty good one here for um, how we actually work. And like I said before, in the earlier architecture drawing, we work at runtime and then we work overtime. So at runtime, that's where you're connecting into your user applications, those prompts I talked about. That's where you're connected into those protocol stacks. And then we have AI health check running overtime. That's where, we're enumerating the model. We're actually asking it questions and we're asking it the same questions over time. And then we're using certain mathematical functions to see if the answers change, if they vary, and if they do, why. And we do that on the agents, your RAG, vector DBs, your co-pilots, your chatbots, your assistants, your apps, and there's lots of ways we can interact with those. So, if you haven't set up MCP yet, or maybe you have, then we can do that, or A2A, or if you have API, we provide full API support so that you can integrate those AI capabilities, even custom AI if you're developing that for your organization. And then we're doing this ongoing assessments of those models if those are enabled for your agents. So we're watching the tools, we're watching the users, we're watching your intended use, and we're checking that all the time. So this is what the dashboard looks like when you log in. I'll kind of go through it. I'll do a separate video on just a full demo, but this is really just so I can stay on target here. And this dashboard's constantly changing, and so I'm showing you this today, and I'm sure a week from now, you're going to see a lot more, graphical interfaces on to monitor your compliance and different stuff like that. But the important part is that quick guide where you configure your large language models and your agents, where you invite users, and any type of compliance issues is going to be here. But also any of the videos you need to train on using our tools. Here's what the prompt looks like. And if you notice kind of the left side over, sorry, the left side over here is what you see as an admin, and the right side is what your user is going to see. And really, you can limit that too. To them, it just looks like a prompt. They don't even have to see. You can run one or multiple large language models, first party and third party. You can set the scoring up, although we do have our own AI judge that will look at those variables, look at the responses, build the consensus, and tell you whether it was a reliable answer or not. And then you can see you can give it the thumbs up or thumbs down based on your organizational mission and how you like the responses or don't. So you get to retain that fine tuning data for your organization. So you're not just training Gemini and Cohere and ChatGPT, you're basically fine tuning the models for your organization, and that's really important that you own that data. This just shows a little bit more on the reliability analysis reports. This is to monitor for really hallucinations, but you're going to get a little data drift in here, but you're also going to get if the model's lying to you, which I think is a very important thing. Now, as the models hallucinate less, and we're noticing that they're just getting trained with more data, probably trained with your data, right? Whether you gave them authorization or not. But we're looking at the actual component variables of those tokens. So you can see we're looking at the prompt engineering method, semantic novelty, task identification, sentiment analysis. We're then also looking at using our AI judge to come across and develop consensus across the models on the response, and then deviations are scored lower, right? But it allows you to say, well, I like that deviation, right? If you're writing scripts and you want it to have the prompt engineering method to be wide open there and it to come up with its own ideas, and you don't want a zero shot that's only going to use information it specifically has, because you're not worried about hallucinations, then that might be important to you, right? So we've set this platform up so that you can really make good risk-based decisions on the type of business you run, and we'll train you how to do that. We talked a little bit about this before too, but first of all, we automatically identify any compliance violations, and this could be security, privacy, reliability, and AI ethics. And this just shows, in the prompt, we tried to put some PHI, some personal health information in there, and some PII, and it just came up with the violations that we had. So we can log that. We can log the user that broke that, whether they updated a document, uploaded it, or they actually put the information in the prompt. So you get that over time in your logs. And not only is that important, that you can notice we fix all the violations automatically. So we don't allow that sensitive data to leave your organization. Just like most guardrails, we'll anonymize it, or if you want it redacted based on your settings, we'll redact it. But we'll keep a log so that you can go back and train your users and say, look, you've been uploading employee records with sensitive data. We can't do that anymore. We didn't break the rule or the regulatory requirement, but we did learn a lesson from it. So that's important too. One thing to remember, and we tell everyone this, is if you are building your own AI applications, you you probably want to use our API or MCP server, right? So that you can build the security, privacy, reliability, and ethics engine into your own AI product. We're built that way, and so if you're a developer or you're building a new platform and you're like, look, I got a really great capability or I have a really good idea, but I'm not quite sure about the regulatory pieces of this or how I'm going to control it from a security and privacy perspective. We work with you to integrate this. So we'll help you with the Python, the Java, the curl scripts. Or if you're just like, I really liked how it did that with HIPAA, you can just pull the code right off the API. So a lot of customers will use our UI, but some decide, look, I just want to build my own AI and I just need you guys to be checking for security and privacy compliance, reliability, and ethics issues. We're fine with that. We work that way. Here's a good example that actually I'll show you right here, where you can get all of the integration points and data so that you can integrate all of our capabilities into your AI stack. Um, It's an important part of our capability is our AI gateway. So, we have an AI firewall, and the AI firewall is our guardrails. Our AI gateway is a true gateway, right? So it's not only an API gateway, but it's an AI gateway, and we focus on AI specific protocols so that we can really understand and control those transactions between your models, your agents, your users, and the tools that those agents are going to use. And so this is where you're going to set it up. You have to configure the MCP server. You can decide what settings you're going to set up with that MCP server. Then you have to configure the logs, whether you want where and how you want to produce them. And then we have a detection model in there for you. And you can use our detection model or your own. So that's the other thing is I get asked a lot of times, Waylon, I have a AI sim SOAR. I've already spent a lot of money on this. We're not a rip and replace. We are integrating into your solution. So if you have a good sim and SOAR and you want the logs to go there, not a problem. This is where you'll configure them. The same thing with the user logs and the prompt logs and the agent logs. You can configure those any way you want, and you can use our log analysis and anomaly analysis, or you can just export them to whatever system that you like and you feel like you want to use. But we're not making you buy anything additional, and I think that's another important part. We're not rip or replace, but if you use our platform, you don't have to go out and buy 50 AI security and privacy tools to get it to work. We want to provide you that whole platform. So if you're going to build your own agents and you have a really high compliance and security environment, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, when you go in and this was specifically originally built for defense, but it works across high compliance environments too. So, you know, when you have retrieval augmented generation and you're like expanding that, or you have a really, um, your own custom AI or large language model that you've built. However, you want to be able to ensure that you not break any security, privacy, or compliance requirements before, the tokens or sorry, the words or your training is weighted. You want to be able to check that over time. We built a module in here so that you can build your own secure agents. And like I said, if you have a RAG model, it's pretty hard to enumerate those once you've done that additional um, your vectors. Once it's vectorized, you're basically it's hard to enumerate that. So we built this so that you can go back and, oh, look, that's a social security number and that's a privacy issue, and so you can enumerate those weights in real time, where that's obviously very important for organizations that have high compliance. So there's lots of ways you can actually monitor your AI agents with our platform. One I've already showed. You can do it via the gateway, right? And you can do it. We also allowed you to do tiering. So, not only do we do zero trust, but we believe in kind of, which I believe it's just a lexicon, right? I think zero trust is just a new way of saying defense in depth. But we allow you to do that defense in depth monitoring, meaning that you can look at the specific agents and tools here and you can monitor them from here. You can monitor their protocols, you can monitor your users prompts, but this is really set up for the specific agents that you set up in your organization, what tools they're going to have access to, and what are you looking for, like what types of things do you not intend or you don't want that agent to do. um, and do you want to monitor for when it starts deviating from that security or privacy policy. This is probably where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, even if you use third party models. And I say that because you know a lot of these models will provide some guardrails. I'm not saying you should trust those guardrails, like you're like, oh, trust us. Well, that's up to you and your organization if you're going to trust them. But I would just remember that you know these models need a few things to get better. The first thing they need is compute. So they need big data centers and energy. That's one problem. But the other thing they need is data. And really, they need sector specific data to get more intelligent. So they're going to get that somehow. And hopefully, that's not your, most prized possessions, your finances, your intellectual property. Um, but either way, you want to have that third party check. And so our guardrails does that in real time. So the AI firewall and that AI gateway does that for you, but that's not enough. You really need to be watching these agents and these models over time. We've seen a lot of really good companies set up these agents and thinking they did a great job, and they're really they set them up and they believe that they're doing all security and privacy, and they set the right alignment up, and then the damn thing goes off the rails, and they don't know till it's too late. So that's why we created AI health checks. So we want to be able to know what your intention is. We want to look for known AI threat, malware, and vulnerabilities against the AI stack specifically. We want to put those in, CVSS base scores for you so you can look at how important, how do I prioritize this, how do I fix it. Um, and yeah, that's what AI Health Scan does for you. So you can set that up right in the LLM too. Like when you set your LLM up or your agent, you can literally press AI Health Check and you can set up how often you want to check that model. So we also have a module built in. This is both in real time and over time, and it may or may not be something you use. We found a lot of media marketing companies are sensitive to this, right? So, or we've had lawyers use this to find out if their customers' copyrighted material was inappropriately used to train models. But I think there's another use of our AI detection, copyright, and plagiarism scan that's important. Is that first of all, if you have employees that come in and they're like, "Hey, I worked 70 hours in the past few weeks putting this report together," you can run it through and see whether that thing was created in Grok in 10 seconds or ChatGPT or whatever, right? So it'll be able to evaluate whether it was developed by AI. And then on the copyright and plagiarism side, same thing, right? If you can't control these models on what data they decided to train the model on and the weights, but you still can get in trouble if you use copyrighted material, right? Or if it's plagiarized. I think that's important in the scientific community or if you're in media. So we go a step further and just tell you like, look, this is where this material came from. Here's the percentage of this material that's out there, and the response looks really great, but they stole this from, in this case, Central Florida lifestyle. Um, and so it's just important to know that so you can make good decisions on, can I even go public with this data, right? Obviously, if you're an enterprise admin, you have full access to audit and logs, so you have that full chain of custody. We monitor input and output tokens so you can actually see how much you're spending, but also you can see what users are using lots of tokens. You can see what models are using too many tokens. That's obviously a problem if you've been using third-party models and you don't know how many tokens you're burning, and then you get that big bill and you're like, why did that happen? We allow you to really keep a complete picture that how many compliance issues based on your organizational security, privacy, reliability, and ethics settings did you break? And it's important to see those because you need to, even though we act as that inline and we fix it before it breaks those requirements, you still want to know. You still want to train your employees. Look, you accidentally uploaded a spreadsheet with social security numbers. That's against our security and privacy policy, or it breaks. We put a bunch of credit cards up into the model, and that's against our PCI requirements. it the information never made it there, but you still want that training because you got to catch that stuff because who knows, in the future, maybe you're doing something else with AI and you don't have zero trusted AI in line, and so you want to make sure that they're trained to do the right thing all the time. And then of course the kind of the syslog pieces of all of the transactions happen so that you can feed this into your SIM and SIEM, and also notice our AI judges in here. So they're reading those logs. AI is reading the logs and be like, this user is not using this model as intended. Like they're trying to get pornographic, videos or graphics back. They've uploaded images of your employees. They're trying to figure out how to make a bomb. They're they're doing weird things, and you just want to make sure that you can monitor that. Or worse, like we've seen organizations like we really believe that either the employee that was uploading sensitive documents was doing it on purpose, like they were literally trying to cause leaks, or they were like super lazy. But it's almost like you just can't imagine what your employees are uploading to these models, and these models are training on your data. So if you don't want your enemies, your adversaries, or your competitors to have this data, you don't want these third party models to have them, because then when your enemy or your adversary or competitor goes to these models and say, hey, what Zero Trusted AI doing on MCP protocol right now? And it, since we uploaded all of our technology documents, hey, they're doing this, and here's the architecture, and here's what they're charging for that. So, this is it's important to have those logs for training, for chain of custody when you have significant security, privacy, reliability, or ethics events. So you can kind of find that patient zero. And like I said, you can output these any way you want, but in our mind, right? And when we built this platform, we don't require you to go buy an expensive AI sim or SOAR capability. You have it right here. You can build the agents. You can ask the data questions like you would ChatGPT, but you're asking your own data and your own sensitive environment. So that's really powerful. Platform lets you manage, obviously, users any way you want. So there's a few ways you can do this. We have a built-in identity management system. So, if you don't have one, like I said before, we're not that rip and replace, but we're not going to make you go buy something. So as part of Zero Trusted, we do the metadata tagging. We do a lot of the identity management on the back end. And this doesn't matter if you use our SaaS solution or if you're putting this in a standalone or your own cloud instance, you're going to have this control over your users. But we're not stuck on our identity management system. If you already got one, we integrate. We'll help you with those SAML assertions. You can authenticate with Active Directory or whatever they call it now, and you can integrate your existing items into our system, because you don't need to rebuild that to use our AI tool. Okay, Waylon, you said you're going to give me control over AI again, and how do I even set that up? That will be in the access and settings tab. You'll click that, and you can see here in this instance where we selected everything. But you're going to know your organization better than we are, right? Well, we can help you, but maybe you don't care about prompt injections. Maybe for this specific model you don't even care about compliance because you're in testing mode. So we allow you full capability over all the modules that are built into our platform, and you can set those up for different user groups. You can set those up for different models themselves. So maybe you have different settings for Grok than you do Gemini, that you do for ChatGPT, or OpenAI or agents and stuff. So you can do that on our platform. Of course, we have admin settings too, and so this is where you come in and you can set up any of those sensitive words your organization said is sensitive, or you can look at the compliance or regulatory requirements the organization is, and you can just select them here, and it will automatically find those sensitive words in uh, your AI prompts and your uploads. And what's cool about that too is we have multi-language support. So you'll notice that we have lots of users in Latin America, so we support um, both, well, all of those user bases. We have users in Japan and the Middle East, and now we're coming into Africa and other places. So uh, this obviously this is an English you know overview, so I'm doing it in English, but you're not stuck with that portal and those attributes. Even notice you can even see here, like you're probably you know uh, not going to set GLBA necessarily or LGPD. Well, LGPD if you're in Brazil, and APPI in Japan, and so all of those settings are just available to your admin right here. Um, and you can turn those on and off. Maybe you don't care about social security numbers, or you call it something else in your country. You can set up all those here. If you use our SaaS capability, you're probably not going to see a lot of this right away. But if you've installed this internally, you have a sensitive network, and we allow you to set up any type of models you want. You can bring your own tokens, or if you have an internal LLM, you can add it here, or your agents, you can add it here. And notice kind of on the settings too, what do you want to use it for? Do you want to scan it automatically? All those type of things are set up right here. So the reason we let you bring your own tokens is that you can use ours, right? So we can automatically set it up for you, but there's a cost to that. And maybe you already have a third party deal with these third party models, and you want to use your own tokens, or you've built, your own version of Llama internally, and you're using that, and you want to use that as your primary LLM for your agents or just for your organization. So we set this up so you have control over that, and you have control over your spend too. Like I said, not only are we keeping track of the tokens that you use with these third parties, but we're also giving you the ability to decide how and what LLMs you're going to use, not only just to control the cost, but really to meet your mission requirements. So the safeguard keywords tab may be important to you. It may not. We see a lot of organizations use this for their AI ethics settings. You can also set up for your DLP, right? So your data loss prevention for AI. Like, I don't want that third party model knowing about my intellectual property, my financials, specifics around my users or my employees. So this is where you could set that up. And what we do is we really try to enhance the prompt and the uploads so that it can't be jailbroken. And if you know what jailbreaking an LLM or an agent is, it's getting to do things or say things that it wasn't intended to do. Hopefully the guardrails catch it, but if they don't, then your employees or your organization can misuse these systems. I talked about one earlier. There's a lot of people using the models for pornography. They're using the models, to write emails that probably are not something that are representative of your organization. We've seen that. We see people trying to find what I would consider non-work related hobbies, like how do you build a bomb or something like that. And what we do is we take those raw keywords that you would have in your dirty word list for your AI ethics or your DLP, and then our AI judge provides a bunch of additional related words so that, for example, if he's like, how do I make a bomb? And it's like, I'm not telling you how to make a bomb. Well, ChatGPT and most of the models have guardrails on that. But then you can give the history of bombs. And then you can say, well, how'd you make that specific bomb? You jailbreak the model. We give you that additional layer in there so that you can, if your employees get better at jailbreaking the models, which they will, humans get better, we're going to help you kind of enforce that anti-jailbreak. We have the settings so you can anonymize keywords. And this goes back to when we were talking about dirty word lists, like your intellectual property. Let's say you have a program called Rainbow Unicorn, and that's a very critical program to your company. I just made that up because I have an 11-year-old daughter, but Rainbow Unicorn is one of those things like, oh, well, I really need to protect that program. LLMs are great at aggregation attacks. I mean, if you have 50 people working and feeding data to them, they can actually they become smarter on you, your mission, and what your organization does, and they can figure out what Rainbow Unicorn is after you upload enough documents, right? So maybe you don't want to contain any of that data or metadata in those documents or prompts, so it can't figure it out. So this is where you would come in and say anyone that says Rainbow Unicorn, I want to alert it on it, but I also want to make sure over time I'm checking that the model doesn't even know what that is. So you'll do that here. Fine tuning. So, I think everyone knows what fine tuning is, but it's basically just, taking a specialized data set to give your model context. So maybe you're a painting company and you're using LLMs and you're like, this thing's really good at responding to emails, but I need to really it to understand the chemicals we use and the process we use. And I'm training this internal model and you're fine tuning that. Well, that's your data, right? That's not ChatGPT, Grok, or Gemini's data. That's your data. So you should own the rights to training the model and with that specific context. And so I think that's a really powerful capability that we provide you is you take that data and you probably saw it before where you had little fingers up and down. Oh, that was a good response. Well, once again, that's your users training and fine tuning that model to be better at painting whatever your mission might be, and so yes, you're training the models. Hopefully you've set up anonymization of the sensitive data so it doesn't figure out your specific area, but if it does, um, at least if you decide I really love ChatGPT but I was told I need to go Cohere or Claude, now you still own that fine-tuning data, so you don't need to start from scratch to retrain that model on how you do business and what you consider a good answer. So we retain that for you, and that's your data. And I think that's another thing that's important about our platform. And so, you retain access and own all the data, all the logs, and everything this platform produces, not us, right? Um, we are constantly training our AI judge, but you can turn off the AI judge and use your own AI judge, right? You can use our fine tuning to find different compliance and regulatory issues or not, right? And so we built um, this platform with the idea that you're not going to trust us either, and we don't expect you to. We want to give you the tools so that you can enable your AI mission. You can do security, privacy, reliability, and AI ethics, and that's what we're really here for. So, you know, if you're really wondering, will this work for me? I would just tell you, don't take our word for it, download it or set up a session of the SaaS and try it yourself. And if you have a question or you're like, look, I have this weird security vulnerability in my organization. Are you looking for these type of things? If we haven't seen it, we'll put it in our roadmap. We're always looking for new, really cool hacks against AI and agents. So if you have some great insight to those and you're seeing some things, then we're happy to build in the controls around that. And if you want to get hold of us, give us a call. Go to our website. We need to update it more, but it is there. It's best to get a hold of us via email, you know, and you can go to our different social media. I would say probably the most postings are on LinkedIn, uh, because that's really where we're finding the most customers, right? We're an enterprise platform, and we're finding that enterprises really need this capability to enable their AI um, roadmap or even just enable AI with high regulatory environments. So that's what we're built for. Once again, zero trusted AI, the mission's in the name, right? You cannot just out of the box trust these AIs, these agents, these large language models, these small language models, these co-pilots, this embedded AI. You got to have some control over it, or you don't have any control at all, right? So it's best to have this third party stack that's constantly monitoring, management, alerting, and proactively defending against these different types of issues that you have with AI. And that's what we do. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Download the demo, try it, and if there's something that we don't have, and like I said before, just reach out and we're happy to figure out how to implement that for you. Thanks.